Me Too performance. Thursday evening and I'm getting dressed for the Financial Women's Alliance annual gala at the Plaza. Black tie required. The invitation arrived 3 weeks ago on cream-colored cardstock with embossed lettering that probably cost more per square inch than most people spend on groceries. An evening of empowerment, celebrating women's leadership in finance. The theme makes me want to vomit, but attendance is mandatory for anyone who wants to maintain their standing in the industry. I select my Tom Ford tuxedo. $4,200 of Italian craftsmanship that fits my body like it was designed by Michelangelo himself. The shirt is custom-made by Turnbull and Asser. $350 for something most people would consider identical to a shirt you could buy at Men's Warehouse for $49. But those people don't understand that excellence exists in details that are invisible to inferior minds. The bow tie takes me exactly 4 minutes and 17 seconds to tie perfectly. I've practiced this specific knot configuration hundreds of times because appearing effortless requires meticulous preparation. My Patek Philippe Calatrava looks understated against the white French cuffs. $87,000 of Swiss precision engineered to appear casual and unpretentious to people who understand what they're looking at. Tiffany emerges from her walk-in closet wearing a Valentino gown that cost $8,000 and makes her look like she belongs on a red carpet instead of at a corporate networking event designed to celebrate mediocrity disguised as progress. Her hair has been styled by some celebrity hairstylist who charges $500 an hour to create looks that appear effortless but require 4 hours of professional manipulation. "Do I look empowered?" she asks, posing in front of the full-length mirror. The question is so fucking stupid that I almost laugh out loud. Empowerment isn't something you wear or purchase or photograph for social media validation. Empowerment is the ability to impose your will on reality through superior intelligence, strategic planning, and the accumulation of resources that allow you to control other people's behavior. But explaining this to Tiffany would be like explaining quantum mechanics to a golden retriever. "You look perfect," I tell her, because maintaining relationship stability requires strategic deployment of positive reinforcement even when the recipient has said something completely moronic. The Tesla Model S Plaid purrs through Manhattan traffic while Tiffany documents our evening on Instagram stories. She takes 17 different selfies trying to capture the perfect angle that shows both her cleavage and the city skyline through the car window. Her followers eat this shit up because they live vicariously through her lifestyle while working retail jobs and sharing studio apartments in Queens with 3 roommates. "This event is so important," she says, applying lip gloss while recording herself in the front-facing camera. "Women supporting women in male-dominated industries. It's like, finally, you know." Finally what? Finally women are allowed to work in finance? Women have been working on Wall Street for decades. They've been CEOs and managing directors and portfolio managers and trading desk supervisors. The idea that finance is some kind of boys' club that excludes women based on gender is a complete fabrication designed to justify preferential treatment for people who can't compete on merit alone. Absolutely, I say, because agreeing with feminist delusions is easier than explaining how markets actually work to someone whose understanding of economics comes from Instagram infographics about the pay gap. The Plaza Hotel lobby is exactly what you'd expect from an event designed to celebrate women's achievements while charging corporate sponsors $50,000 per table for the privilege of demonstrating their commitment to gender equality. Ice sculptures shaped like the female symbol. Cocktail napkins printed with inspirational quotes from female entrepreneurs who inherited their businesses from their fathers. A red carpet where attendees can pose for photographers who will post the images on social media platforms owned by male billionaires. The guest list reads like a directory of corporate virtue signaling and calculated career advancement disguised as social justice. Female executives from every major financial firm pretending they achieved their positions through pure merit rather than diversity initiatives and lawsuit avoidance strategies. Male executives apologizing for their chromosomes while desperately trying to signal their feminist credentials to avoid being cancelled by Twitter mobs. Preston. Marcus Wellington approaches with his wife, some former model who now runs a non-profit organization that teaches financial literacy to underprivileged women. The organization has overhead costs of 87%, which means that 13 cents of every donated dollar actually reaches the intended beneficiaries. But charity effectiveness metrics are less important than tax deduction opportunities and social status enhancement. Marcus, good to see you, I say, shaking his hand with exactly the right amount of pressure to communicate confidence without appearing aggressive. His wife air kisses Tiffany and immediately starts discussing some wellness retreat in Tulum where they teach indigenous meditation techniques to wealthy white women for $3,000 per week. The cocktail hour features signature drinks with names like Glass Ceiling Martini and Equal Pay Cosmopolitan. I order a whiskey neat because I'm not participating in the theatrical performance of supporting women's rights through alcoholic beverage consumption. The bartender is a 22-year-old aspiring actress who moved to New York from Ohio and works catering events to pay for acting classes that will never lead to meaningful career opportunities. "Isn't this amazing?" asks some woman in a sequin dress that probably costs more than most people's monthly rent. She's the chief diversity officer at Goldman Sachs, which means she makes $400,000 annually to ensure that hiring decisions are based on demographic characteristics rather than competence levels. Finally having a space where women can celebrate their achievements without male interference. Male interference. As if men attending an event specifically designed to celebrate women somehow diminishes women's accomplishments. As if the presence of people with Y chromosomes creates some kind of oppressive atmosphere that prevents women from networking and discussing business opportunities. The entire premise is fucking insane, but everyone nods along because questioning feminist orthodoxy is career suicide in current corporate culture. The dinner portion takes place in the grand ballroom, which has been decorated with purple lighting and table centerpieces featuring books written by female authors about overcoming gender-based obstacles in professional environments. My table includes several hedge fund managers, 2 investment bank VPs, and a cryptocurrency entrepreneur who sold her startup for $40 million after 18 months of operation that generated zero revenue. The keynote speaker is some former Secretary of Treasury who wrote a best-selling memoir about breaking barriers and challenging assumptions about women's capabilities in high-pressure decision-making roles. She takes the podium wearing a power suit that probably costs more than most people's cars and begins her speech with statistics about gender representation in executive positions. "When I started my career 30 years ago," she says, "women comprised only 12% of senior finance positions. Today, that number has grown to 38%, but we still have work to do." The audience applauds enthusiastically, as if mathematical percentages somehow represent moral progress rather than the natural result of expanding educational opportunities and changing cultural preferences. The speaker doesn't mention that women now earn more college degrees than men, receive preferential consideration for graduate programs, and benefit from explicit gender-based hiring quotas in most major corporations. "We must continue fighting for equal representation," she continues, "because diversity makes organizations stronger and more profitable." This is the standard corporate diversity propaganda that everyone pretends to believe despite overwhelming evidence to the contrary. Study after study shows that forced diversity initiatives reduce organizational efficiency, increase conflict between demographic groups, and create resentment among employees who are passed over for promotion due to their biological characteristics. But acknowledging these facts would violate the fundamental religious tenets of contemporary feminism. The speech continues with anecdotes about overcoming sexism and discrimination, most of which sound like exaggerated victim narratives designed to generate sympathy and justify preferential treatment. Every professional setback becomes evidence of systemic oppression. Every criticism becomes proof of gender-based bias. Every challenge becomes a heroic struggle against patriarchal forces determined to prevent women from achieving success. "We must believe women," she says, and the audience erupts in applause. Believe women. The most intellectually dishonest slogan of the modern feminist movement. As if truth can be determined by the demographic characteristics of the person making claims rather than objective evidence and logical analysis. As if women are incapable of lying, exaggerating, or misremembering events in ways that serve their personal interests. The Me Too movement weaponized this slogan to destroy countless men's careers based on unsubstantiated accusations and decades-old allegations that could never be proven or disproven. Due process became victim blaming. Presumption of innocence became rape culture. The fundamental principles of justice were abandoned in favor of gender-based tribalism disguised as social progress. I think about Harvey Weinstein sitting in prison while countless women who voluntarily traded sexual favors for career advancement now present themselves as victims of coercion rather than participants in transactions they initiated. I think about Matt Lauer and Charlie Rose and all the other men who were destroyed by women seeking attention and financial settlements years after consensual encounters that they retroactively redefined as assault. The hypocrisy is fucking staggering. These same women who demand to be believed without evidence spent decades using their sexuality as a professional tool, sleeping with bosses and clients and colleagues to advance their careers, then claiming victimhood when the strategy stopped working or when younger, more attractive women replaced them in the sexual marketplace. Sexual harassment has no place in modern workplaces, the speaker continues. We must create environments where women feel safe to report inappropriate behavior without fear of retaliation. Inappropriate behavior. The definition has expanded to include everything from actual assault to unwanted compliments about appearance to men asking female colleagues for dates. Workplace flirtation has been criminalized. Normal human sexual interaction has been redefined as harassment. The natural dynamics between men and women have been pathologized by feminist ideologues who view all male sexuality as inherently predatory. Meanwhile, these same women participate in hookup culture, post sexually explicit content on social media platforms, and celebrate their own sexual liberation while simultaneously demanding protection from male sexual attention. They want to be empowered sexual beings when it serves their interests and helpless victims when victimhood provides greater advantages. The speaker introduces several survivors who will share their stories of overcoming workplace harassment and assault. Each woman approaches the microphone with carefully rehearsed testimonials about male colleagues who said or did inappropriate things that traumatized them and affected their career advancement. One woman describes how her boss commented on her appearance during a performance review. Another explains how a client touched her arm during a business dinner. A third recounts how a colleague sent her flirtatious text messages after a company party. These minor social interactions are presented as evidence of systemic sexual predation that requires corporate policy changes and legal interventions. The audience responds with supportive applause and standing ovations, treating these mundane workplace experiences like heroic acts of courage rather than calculated performances designed to generate sympathy and professional opportunities. Each survivor receives offers for book deals, speaking engagements, and consulting contracts to help other organizations address their harassment problems. This is the genius of the Me Too movement. It transformed ordinary workplace interactions into valuable commodities that can be monetized through victim narratives. Women realized they could achieve more success by claiming oppression than by demonstrating competence. Victimhood became more profitable than excellence. The final speaker is a young woman who started a non-profit organization dedicated to helping female harassment victims navigate the legal system and find therapeutic support. She's 28 years old with no relevant professional experience beyond being sexually assaulted in college by someone she initially described as her boyfriend but later redefined as her rapist after he broke up with her to date someone else. We must center women's voices in conversations about sexual violence, she says. For too long, male perspectives have dominated discussions about experiences that primarily affect women. Male perspectives like due process, burden of proof, and presumption of innocence. Legal concepts developed over centuries to prevent false accusations and emotional manipulation from destroying innocent people's lives. Principles that feminists view as obstacles to their goal of criminalizing male sexuality and expanding female power through victim status. The evening concludes with a networking reception where everyone congratulates each other for their commitment to gender equality and social justice. Business cards are exchanged between women who will never do business with each other because their success depends on preferential treatment from organizations trying to avoid discrimination lawsuits rather than actual market value creation. I watch Marcus Wellington apologizing to some diversity consultant for his firm's insufficient progress on gender representation metrics. His ancestors conquered continents and built financial empires, and he's groveling before some woman whose only qualification is having the correct chromosomes and sufficient grievance credentials to monetize male guilt. Wasn't that inspiring? Tiffany asks as we wait for the valet to retrieve our car. I feel so empowered right now. Empowered by what? Listening to wealthy women complain about being oppressed while wearing designer gowns and jewelry that cost more than most people's annual salaries? Watching successful professionals claim victim status to justify their advantages over more qualified competitors? Participating in a religious ceremony disguised as a professional development event? Very inspiring, I tell her, because maintaining social camouflage requires strategic deployment of socially acceptable responses even when the situation reveals the complete intellectual and moral bankruptcy of contemporary culture. During the drive home, Tiffany posts dozens of photos from the event with captions about female empowerment and sisterhood and breaking glass ceilings. Her followers respond with heart emojis and flame symbols and comments about being inspired by strong women supporting each other. The entire performance generates thousands of likes and hundreds of comments from people who mistake social media engagement for meaningful human connection. The Me Too movement represents everything that's wrong with modern feminism and contemporary American culture generally. It weaponized victimhood to destroy the careers of successful men while elevating mediocre women who couldn't compete based on merit alone. It replaced objective standards with subjective feelings. It criminalized normal human interaction while celebrating degeneracy and dysfunction. But most importantly, it revealed that our entire social and economic system can be manipulated by people who understand how to leverage identity politics for personal advantage. Women learned they could achieve more through claims of oppression than through actual achievement. Men learned they could avoid destruction by preemptively apologizing for their biological characteristics and supporting policies that discriminate against them. The movement succeeded because it exploited male protective instincts and female in-group preferences to create a coalition powerful enough to override rational analysis and objective evidence. It turned the legal system into a weapon against male success while creating financial and social opportunities for women who mastered the performance of vulnerability. And the beautiful irony is that the women who benefited most from Me Too are exactly the kind of privileged, wealthy, connected individuals who never needed protection from anything. While working-class women continue to experience actual harassment and assault with no recourse or support, upper-class women monetize their victimhood narratives through book deals and speaking fees and consulting contracts. This is how power actually operates in contemporary America. Not through competence or merit or value creation, but through mastery of identity-based grievance narratives that generate sympathy, attention, and resources from institutions desperate to appear morally righteous while maintaining their actual power structures. The system rewards people who understand how to perform victimhood while punishing people who insist on objective standards and merit-based evaluation. Success requires learning to navigate these dynamics without revealing your actual thoughts about their intellectual and moral legitimacy. As we arrive at our building, I'm already planning how to use tonight's insights to advance my own interests while avoiding the career-destroying mistakes that have eliminated so many of my predecessors. The key is understanding that feminism isn't about equality or justice or protecting women from harm. It's about redistributing power from competent men to mediocre women through manufactured grievances and institutional capture. And once you understand the game, you can play it better than the people who created it.